Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Devil's Advocate Trades Edition. Today with me, I have Victoria Givlin, and she is an amazing marketing specialist. She is, well, I always look at her like she's 21, but we both know she's not. She's close. She's closer to 30, but she looks like she's 21. So I say just work with it. But so she has branched out and started her own thing, which is called Ascent Stories. And one thing I will say about Victoria is I've worked alongside her with another company, and she was one of my marketing people, and she's just amazing. She's got a great personality, and she's fun and wonderful. So we're going to just talk about this new adventure you got going on. So tell me, welcome.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here, and it's always awesome to hear about what you're up to and sharing your message and just getting to support each other. It makes me really happy.
I love it. Absolutely. So tell me about Ascent Stories. How'd you come up with the name? What are you doing? What's the aspect of marketing that you're looking at or honing in on?
Absolutely. So storytelling and community building, I just love doing. So I love doing that in a variety of different mediums. So I've been working in the film and television industry for about modeling fashion for 11 years and acting and in that world film side for about 8. And so last year I had a really fun experience where I wrote and directed. I'm a very creative human being, so I wanted to tell the stories that I wanted to tell, and I got to direct and produce and direct a short called Before I Go, and I had a lot of fun with it. And then I realized, like, I love supporting local businesses and getting their messages out there, but there's other ways to do that. So I wanted to do it with film and media production. And then also during the Christmas break, it was not a phenomenal time for me at the time, but I wanted to write. I'd had this idea in my head for a while, like Before I Go, that I wanted to write an anthology piece with a bunch of writers, kind of like Chicken Soup for the Soul, but about grief and heartbreak, and not only to talk about what we went through, but also how to help get out of it if someone else notices that they're going through those signs and symptoms too. So books, movies, videos, publishing, it's a lot of fun.
I love that. You know what? I remember reading Chicken Soup for the Soul. My mom used to buy me the books like almost like every time a new one came out, she'd buy me one when I was younger. And I would read them, and I used to love reading them because you're right. Like, there's the one thing that a lot of people are pushing in marketing. If you're good at marketing, they tell you to tell your story. And the reason for it is because people need to remember that you're human, that you have a story, that you didn't just one day pop up and get here. And now all of a sudden you're like this millionaire and blah, 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 or whatever. Or you failed a bunch of times at it. And it's like, are you a failure? It's like, no, you have a story. Because as we both know, fail is first attempt at learning, right? So you learn something new. So you got to fall a lot before you can really start running. And I love that you're doing this, and that you're comparing stories and that you're doing some shorts on it, like short films, and whatnot. So I think that that's amazing because people, well, nowadays, like our attention span's like a squirrel. So we need to watch something on video, right? I'm really bad for that. Like, it was funny. I was talking to my other half one day and I was like, how do I decompress? And he was like, he's like, you go to your room, you close the door, or you just go, like, you get into a space where you're comfortable. And he's like, and you scroll. And I'm like, no, I don't. Like, I feel attacked. Like, what's your problem?
Because you feel attacked. He's right. He's right.
Right? I know. And then we watched this reel. So then, because when we both scroll reels and we watched this reel together, and he was laughing so hard. And I was like, it's not true. But it was about when a man is winning an argument, a woman will start changing the topic and cussing him out about something else. So it's like, if they're having a disagreement, she's all of a sudden, she's like, well, your pants legs shorter than, like, you look like you're wearing flood pants. Like where's this? Like, she redirects to try and gain momentum because she's losing the argument. And he's like, you've done that a few times. And I'm just like, I don't do that. He's like, yes, you do. And I'm like, well, then don't piss me off. And then I'm going to find shit to just pull out of a hat. Like, just let me be upset for a minute. Let me sit in my upset for a minute. What the fuck?
Yeah, let me feel my feelings.
Yeah. Like everyone's made of feelings. Guys just learned how to suppress them a lot better than women. So, wow. I mean, depends on who you ask, but that seems to be the consensus. Most women will feel emotions more deeply. I shouldn't say deeply, vocally. Women are more vocal about their
More
emotions.
expressive. Yeah, absolutely.
So men and women feel emotions probably similarly, but women are way more vocal. So, but yeah. So tell me some of the things you've produced. Like, is anything, like, can anyone go see something? Like, what's going on? Like, I'm so excited. I'm like, oh my God. Like, can I find this somewhere?
Yeah, so I'm submitting before I go to a couple film festivals, and it's currently undecided about whether or not it'll be in Cuff, which is the Calgary Underground Film Festival. So if it is in, then it'll be premiering at their theater in April.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've also got Check Engine, which is a men's mental health film that I got to produce that is also making the film screenings. We did a private show where anyone who wanted to come could buy a ticket at Canyon Meadows, and we sold the theater out, which was awesome.
Well, I love the name Check Engine. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah,
very well. Very, very well done.
Thank you. It's based on a real story about my friend Kevin, who taught his best friend how to ride a motorcycle, and that year his best friend actually had a terrible accident and he passed away. So Kevin blamed himself and felt like, society teaches a lot of men that you should suppress your feelings and you shouldn't express yourself. So this film is to educate people to feel differently, and that it's okay not to be okay for men, and that they should be talking to someone.
I think that's great. And let me tell you something. It really rolls into what I also do here, as the host of my podcast, is I do bring on people that are mental health specialists or things that people can, like, this is a great resource for people to go watch these movies and be like, because then it's just a movie, like there's no pressure that you have to like have these big feelings about all these things. It's like, just go watch the movie and, it might resonate with you. You might identify with the way this character feels, because this character is based on a real person, and it's not just like some made up thing. But then, like, do you ever find, like, in movies how you can identify so much with a character and you're just like, oh my God, like, it's almost like they wrote this for me. But it's because you have to get it somewhere. And, it's something that myself and some of my friends have talked about. They're like, there's all these crazy things out there, but they have to derive from somewhere. Like, they can't, it's not just one day someone's imagination was so amazing that they just dreamed up a unicorn. You know what I mean? Like, they had to exist at some point. Somebody saw that, but, and I mean, I would love to see, I know I'm a unicorn, but I'd like to see a mythical one. But yeah, so this is amazing. Thank you for telling me that this is about mental health. What else, what other kind of topics are you touching on other than mental health and grief? Is there anything else?
So that seems to be what we kind of focused on moving forward. So the book is called Good Grief, and it's got 13 authors in it, and we're talking about lessons of trials and tribulations and heartbreak. And the next one that we're going to be talking about, I've got a good demand for, is business and leadership, and how we can help inspire the next generation of leaders and mentors, or just someone who might be kind of down in the dumps for what they're doing with their business and how they might want a bit of a pick-me-up to help move themselves forward.
Okay. In your opinion, what do you think? Because you are kind of, well, I don't know how to say this. I mean, you are like your cusp for millennial and kind of the Gen Z. You're on the cusp for that. So you're more millennial, correct? Okay.
Yeah, I'd say I'm at the tail end of the millennial.
Yeah. So tell me some of, like, I mean, so someone who's like the tail end of Gen X, I'm kind of in a position where I'm like, I sit there and I look at the Gen Z and I'm just like, I want to kill all of you right now. I want to kill all of you. Like, what the hell is happening? The millennials will try and pull part of what the Gen X or Gen Z's pull, like part of it, like little pieces here and there. It all depends. It's preferential. Some people are like, oh, I'm going to try and call in and say I'm getting a Starbucks. Like that happens with the millennials, not as often, but they'll try. But the Gen Zers are really big on, well, my time is my time and I'll let you know. Like it's very entitled. It's very entitled. And I struggle with the work world. So someone who's on the tail end of it, what do you think that, how we can all kind of come together and not want to kill each other? Like, what do you think the ingredients are to say, this is the way I understand the generation and this is the miss that's happening, or maybe this is the miss for them?
Yeah, I think it was interesting because I was asked to come to the Canadian Business Women's Network, CBWN, and talking about bridging the gap between the generations, because their group is also I believe most of their networking group is 50 plus. So they're trying to make sure that they don't, that they continue to grow, which means they need the younger generations. And what astounded me and a lot of us in the room was we had even like 14, 15-year-old girls that have this podcast that they're doing really well on. And their lead thing was just for everyone available to have a safe space of genuine respect and authenticity and an honest conversation about what each person needs. And to, regardless of, the younger generations didn't want to feel dumb because they were young, and the older generations didn't want to feel like they didn't have anything of value to provide because they didn't understand technology as much. Like it was just really an understanding of like, and this is why I love my generation kind of in the middle, and I'm sure you understand, is like, we need an inclusion of all sides. We need to include the tech and the innovation and a bit of, I feel like we've swung so far on the pendulum. We went so far from like the generations prior to me of like, it doesn't matter who I am. It doesn't matter. This is my duty. This is my role. This is my job. This is what I do. And I'm a number, to like the sky should be given to you. You're entitled to everything. You don't have any experience in the workforce. Like we need to pull traits from both and kind of come to a happy middle. I think just being able to keep a good spot where that conversation is including all sides, I think is the best way to do it.
And you know what? I agree with that, because I said, they started to talk originally about how my time is my time. Come in at 8, leave at 4. Like, don't give them any more time than necessary. Make sure you're being compensated accordingly for it. But what's happening is that it's like you said, it's the pendulum is kind of swung and then kind of stuck and then kind of came back all the way back because of the generational divide, because there is a generational divide, right? So no matter what anyone says, I'll be like, I don't give a shit who you are. You can't tell me that I'm going to be able to work with someone who's my daughter's age by the time she's 20 at my age, because I might choke her. Like, I love her, but her work, like the way she talks about things sometimes, and I'm sitting here and people are like, well, you're raising her. And I'm like, I'm not raising her to be that. Like, I have different things implemented in my house so that my kids don't turn out like that. And that's, I mean, a lot of people are like, you're crazy. And I'm like, no, people need to, like, I think this should be a fundamental, because we're not living back in the 80s and 90s. We're living in the 2020s, right? So that's where we got to kind of be, is in that realm. And, but what happens is, you've got them where they're like, they come right at 8 and they leave right at 4. Instead of coming in 5 minutes early just to start their computer and grab a coffee so that they're not running late, or now taking, employer time to go do those things. So they have their own time to do those things, to start their computer and grab a coffee and go back. And then they can just start their day. It's 5 minutes. It's not going to hurt them. And then when they're leaving, if it would take 5 minutes to finish a spreadsheet, I don't think 5 minutes is unrealistic. Why not just finish the spreadsheet? But they don't. They're like, the button gets turned off immediately at 4, they're gone. And I'm like, there has to be a happy medium, because I agree with them that you should be compensated for all of the time that you're putting in. It shouldn't be that people are building companies on on their backs, and then a lot of them are forgotten about. I mean, how many people do you know still work the same position, or maybe have made a lateral movement, or maybe have had like one jump to manager? Not many of them get to CEO. Not many of them get to operations director. Not many of them get to the VP. They don't get to the executive roles. they're constantly right in that either like the low management, the middle management, or they're the worker bee, and that's where they're happy. That's where they stay. Or at least that's what we're told. Are they really happy? Because some people will tell you that I'm happy being the worker bee, leave me alone. And then I've pulled people out of that little worker bee title and been like, no, we're going to put you here. I think you're great. I think you could do a lot of things. I think you're, you're a good people person. You're a good leader. And then I see them shine in that role. But there's so much competitiveness still in like unhealthy competitiveness. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm like, well, because I do want the generations to work, but I listen to how some of the things are like, it blows my mind how I listen to, it's like, oh, I can't go there. I need a mental health day. Oh, well, I have a lot of anxiety and I can't do this because I have a lot of anxiety. Oh, well, that doesn't exist. And I'm like, oh my God, if I said that to any of my employers, I'd been fired. I'd have been fired. And so I feel like there's some people who that's a legitimate thing. And I don't care how old you are. You can be 44, you can be 64, you can be 24. I don't care how old you are. Anxiety exists, and it is something that can cripple you mentally to do anything. And so when you do have somebody in any age range that is legitimately going through high anxiety and they cannot function to the point where they can come into work and do their job, and they're like, hey, I need a mental health day, and it's legitimate, it takes away from employers to say, yeah, no problem. I totally understand, and have that sympathetic, nature towards it, because they've heard it from like half the staff. I need a mental health day. And they're like, how am I going to run a fucking company when everyone's saying they need a mental health day? So it takes away from people who actually have mental health issues. And that's where I struggle, because you have a generation that's like, it's like candy, like it's like the cry wolf, right? So how do you what would be in your opinion, if you were to create a story to how to bridge the gap, how would you eliminate this cry wolf with mental health aspect? Because it's something that a lot of Gen X and older millennials stare at dead in the face. They're like, they're crying wolf. And then the people who do have mental health are looked at like shit because everyone else has abused this aspect. So what would be your advice to all of us? If you were what would be the message you'd want to put out there?
And I believe there's something similar it's on the mental health side, and they also do it on like when it comes to orientation about people in the bedroom, and like that's nobody's business. No. Like it's not, whatever people might do on these things, but
yeah, I don't care who you're married to. I don't care who you're married to. I don't care who you sleep with. Can you do the job? Like that does nothing to do with your skill set.
Yeah, like that doesn't need to be involved in the workforce whatsoever. And like let people have their bathrooms. Let people, if you want to have like an all gender bathroom or whatever, then what have you. But I think the inclusion is to just have more of like, in general, people seem to like having, especially with the pandemic, like a bit of this and a little bit of that, but finding a balance of like, you can't abuse the system at the same time. So people don't have to come into the office typically to do a 9-to-5 job every single day. Like most remote workers don't have to, but okay, sure. But then you still have to come into the office like 2 or 3 days of the week. And then the other days you still have to clock in those times, and you can just do it at your location. Or for me, like animals bring a lot of mental health benefits. So I never understood, like I'm in a collaborative office space where I'll work out remotely and I'll bring my dog, and other people can bring their dogs too. And that's becoming more accepted in society, because if my dog is well behaved and he brings me and better morale to everyone else around the office, then why not? So I think there is like a bit of a victim mentality and stuff, and a bit of a woe is me. But I mean, at the end of the day, the people that I look up to are really like, it may not be your fault that houses don't cost anywhere near what they used to, or that they're a lot more expensive than they are now, than they were, or that the economy is not doing well, but it is, or that something happened to you when you were younger, but it is your responsibility to have to handle it and figure out how to make it work for you. So even if you are struggling with mental health issues, like, it's good to know that there are resources out there. And for me too, uh, like, I've been diagnosed with a couple different things, and I'm fine to express that and say that because I feel like it brings more safety to others that may be struggling with the same thing. But I tell them all the time, I'm like, it might be an explanation for why my feelings act a certain way because I've learned a certain thing, but it's not an excuse to be a bad person. It's not an excuse to be someone that goes out of their way to harm other people and to be like, well, I'm anxious, you just have to deal with me this way. Like, no, that's not acceptable. Like, you have to go get that handled or get that sorted because, again, it's not your fault. I'm sorry that you're feeling anxious, but it is your responsibility to have to handle this. And if you can't, then we should rehabilitate you in some capacity and figure out how can society benefit you in order for you to be a functioning, healthy, happy human again. And a lot of those, like, Aboriginal tribes and things like that do that. They don't isolate people and put them at the end of the city when they've done wrong and not let them eat or see the general public. Like, they put them in a circle and they say, okay, like, how have we not done well as a society? Where have we dropped the ball for this individual, and what can we do so that we can all step up and they don't act this way or they don't do that anymore?
Okay. So what I'm hearing is accountability, responsibility is what I'm hearing. So, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. And I'm going to tell you, so listening to how you're saying it. So I hear you have a lot of passions. That's what I'm hearing a lot of. I'm hearing you have a lot of passions. And I don't doubt that you will have multiple stories that will come out soon about all of these things. So I'm excited for you to do all of these things. But what I'm hearing from you is that by bridging the gap is by taking responsibility for yourself and what you can. But what I'm also going to tell you, and I'm going to elaborate on it, something that I say often. And I think what I'm hearing in part of that is you can't control how other people perceive your communication. Therefore, you know what your problem is. You know how you're going to deal with it. So then you have to learn how to control your response or your reaction to a situation. And then versus escalating it, because we are all very much emotional beings and people don't like to be challenged. People don't like change. People don't like a lot of different things. So if you go into a realm or a space where, like you said, right? Like, if you need your own bathrooms, because we talked, I mean, I can tell you have a passion for, the LGBTQ, and that you also have a passion for Indigenous and giving them a voice. And that's an amazing thing, Victoria, because a lot of people are trying to give a voice or are trying to be in those communities, giving a voice, and they're not being heard. And so, I'm someone who gives a voice as well to the LGBTQ, especially in trades, because to me, I don't give a shit about all of the trivialities of what makes you, you. I just care whether or not you can do the job. And then I tell people, I've said it on my podcast before, where I hate people that are straight too. If you're an asshole is an asshole. I don't give a shit. I don't care who you sleep with or who you go home to or what do you identify as. If you're an asshole, I'm going to tell you you're an asshole. So doesn't matter, right? To me, I take the person as they are. There are things where the water gets really muddy for me. So when I was in my 20s, I spent a lot of time in the gay community, and I love drag queens. I think they're great. Like, even now, I think they're great. High drama, but they're great. But you gotta like that. You gotta be all about that. Like, I mean, that's what they are, right? They create the illusion of being a beautiful woman, and well, women tend to be a little dramatic. So here we go. And, and they do really well. Like, there's some of them where they'd be like running 6-inch heels. And I was like, bitch, I can't run in 3. Like, you need to stop. Like, I trip over myself in my running shoes. Like, stop showing me up, but I love drag queens, and I was around for trans. And I had a few girlfriends of mine that transitioned into being females. And I'm not going to lie to you. I was totally that girl that was like, oh my God, I have to see. Show me. I was totally I still am that person. And they were like, And we were friends, obviously. I wouldn't just say that to a stranger. And they were like, yeah, absolutely. And I'm not going to lie to you. Like, it was good. Like, I'm like, holy crap. Like, that I would never know. I would never know. And they're like, that's the point. And I'm like, yep, they did good. Whoever your surgeon is, let me know. I'll hand out the card. Like, and so the bathroom thing for me is not an issue. Okay. The bathroom thing for me, I actually prefer when it has like the male female on it and then it's like one toilet. I actually prefer it because then I only have to worry about one aspect of the space, which is one toilet. And I carry like those little spray hand sanitizers with me. I'm that girl. So I actually prefer them. I don't really care. And I've tuck-tailed into male bathrooms. I've gone into the family bathrooms. To me, I don't care if we're going to the bathroom. What I care about is when, and this is where it gets muddy for me. Okay. I struggle with the idea that the LGBTQ community or transgender community is being targeted because predators are utilizing the facade of transgender and going into the women's bathroom to have, nefarious ideas of what they're going to be doing in there. And they're not trans. They're predators. That's what they are. They're predators. They're abusers. They're pieces of shit. Let's just be honest. But because they're like, oh, well, he was in a dress and I didn't know and blah, blah, blah. Now all of a sudden the trans community is targeted and they're like, well, they shouldn't have their own bathroom. They should just identify whatever part they have, they should be going to that bathroom. And I'm like, no, that's not safe either. Right. So that's where I struggle is when you have a community of people that are different. And then somebody who's a piece of shit comes along and tries to create a situation that will then exacerbate what the person's mission was. We just want to have bathrooms. Well, we're going to not see that happen. So now all the predators are going into the bathroom and then they're hurting little girls. Like I've seen, like even me, I've walked in with my daughter and I'll walk into the bathroom, push the door open. And then I've seen a guy standing there and I'm like, can I fucking help you? And he's like, oh, I thought this was, I'm like, yeah, you thought wrong. Get out before I kick you in the fucking throat. And then I tell my daughter, sometimes I'll even grab her and be like, we're leaving. I don't know what he did. I don't know if he drugged the toilet paper. I don't know if he put something on the seat. I don't know what his thing is. So now we're out. You can hold your bladder or piss outside. I don't care. Like, cause that's where my brain goes. It's like all these different things that now come about. It's not just that he would try to attack her. It's like, what could he have done to maybe get her like as she leaves? Right. So that terrifies me. And I don't like that. So I'm worried for them. And then the misinformation that goes out in regards to, the community and then people who are trying to jump on, like it's the LGBTQ has since expanded into like I don't know, whatever. And I don't like that. I don't like that it's expanded into all these things. The LGBTQ is a movement on its own. Okay. And it has its own flag and their flag was designed to show the diversity of each person. And you will look it up. There was a gentleman, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but there was a gentleman that did this. Sorry, my daughter, because it's texting me, it comes through. Yeah, it's fun, right? She'll just keep texting. Oh God. Sorry. There we go. We'll leave her open. She's a brat. So I have the emergency bypass. So my kids automatically get through. Good God. So anyway, it's the flag. Yeah. So the flag is there for a reason. And there was a gentleman, I don't remember his name. There was a gentleman that basically said the rainbow flag because it shows that there's diversity in everybody and that we're all different and that we're all beautiful in our own way. Right? Beautiful. Love it. Who doesn't like a rainbow? Everyone loves rainbows. Rainbows come after the rain. So I don't know why there's all these other flags. Number one. Number two, because to me, it's just convolution. You're just confusing, right? So it's like there's everyone seems to have a flag and, which I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of all the flags. And then I'm also not a fan of how everyone's kind of jumped on this bandwagon. Have you noticed that? Like people are like, oh, well, you know, like there's this, what is it? It's like pedophiles have kind of tried to jump on the LGBTQ bandwagon. And I'm like, no, stop saying yes to all these other people. The LGBTQ is all it needs to be. Stop adding. You're convoluting the message and it's getting mixed up. And people are now have these wild voices that you've got like furries and this and that. That's not what it's about. It's just about being different and being accepted for being different or loving the same sex or wanting to be the same sex or being the non-binary. It was like a ham and cheese sandwich. Like it was perfect. That's what you got. You knew what you were fucking getting. And now it's just convoluted. And I get really angry about that because even my friends that are in the gay community are like, I don't even go to the gay pride anymore. They're like, it's a farce. It's absolutely disgusting. People prancing around naked. It's disgusting. They're like, I won't even bring my kids to that. You know, and these are people in the community. They're like, I won't go. I haven't gone to gay pride in 4 years. 4 years. I haven't gone to gay pride. So I don't know. I haven't been. The last time I went was right before COVID. And like, I know some of my family members that are gay go, but, they go to different ones, I think, if I'm being honest. But anyways, that's my point is that it's just, everything gets convoluted. So I think trying to simplify and take a responsibility for what everyone says, but that's the problem. How many people, I mean, you have to be doing movies on narcissism. Good God. It's rampant right now. Narcissism is like everybody has narcissistic tendencies, but then like out of everybody who has narcissistic tendencies, like 60% of the fucking population is narcissists. And I'm like, what's happening? Where did these people emerge from where they felt that it was okay to be this person, to be this selfish with your children, with your partners, with your parents, with whatever? Like, I don't get it. So how do you create a situation or create a space that's safe enough to say, I don't understand you and I don't understand you, help me understand. And then both of them could either, and I mean, agree to disagree and say, well, I don't agree with the way you do it, but that's okay. And just be accepting of the situation. Like there's screaming from both sides, no matter what the objectivity is or what the objective is. So I mean, I got to commend you. I mean, I think men's mental health is amazing. I think your business mentor is going to blow up because you're very smart and you're very charismatic. And I love that about you. And charismatic people always go further because we're very charming and inspiring. And
I like that. Charming and inspiring.
You like that? Well, you know, I just say it's just a really nice way of saying we're really manipulative, but positively manipulative. That's what an influencer is.
Yeah. What I was reading, The Tao of Influence, it's that, you know, I think, yeah, there's such a narrative from the 1% that I'll like to say that's trying to control so much of the media because of the money that they have and just being able to push those sorts of narratives. And it's like, why are people acting this way? Well, because the narrative has been from the 1% that they're entitled to this sort of offering and trying to ultimately, their goal is to divide us and to make us angry with each other and to make us, because when they do that, they can take our rights away. They can do other things over here because we're not seeing what they're doing. So it's huge. It just comes back to like, I mean, every single person, if they realize that they all have influence, we all have people that matter to us and that when we make an opinion that, you know, someone in our life will care about it, probably. If not, you might be a psychopath, but like studying criminology and stuff, that's very, very, very few percent of the population. And that's kind of the crutch that we were talking about earlier, is so many people, like, it's very common, a lot more common than we think, to be like, yeah, I actually am feeling anxious today, or I am feeling depressed, but it's not to have it be debilitating enough to have to be like, hey, we have to go seek some, like, then go get the help that you need. And there's no shame in that. There's so much strength in being like, you know what, I'm not okay right now. I can't figure this out. I need to do something different. I need to go get some help. it's the enabling of the victim mentality and the woe is me and the this is what I deserve. And like, no, that's not how the world works. Nobody's going to give you anything. Like, you have to earn and crawl and work and push. And that's, yeah, it's the generational thing of like, there's a lot of generation 2 generations above me that like did the thing. They were like the boomers. They followed the government mandate. They did exactly what they wanted and the government gave them exactly what they wanted. And then when they retired, they got a beautiful pension and they had a nice home on a sustainable income and they could have one income, and like that doesn't exist anymore. So
Nope.
but we've swung so far the other way, and that like I mean, kudos to the people that can make a living shaking their butt on the internet, but like that's not the kind of legacy that I want to leave behind, and then it's not the difference that I want to make, and it starts with all of us. So just being able to be like, hey, like what's something that I can do? And it also has to do with culture. Like the Eastern culture out in Asia and stuff, they do not think this way. They think about, how can I make the life better for my neighbor? How can I make sure that I don't impede on their rights and what they're doing? And how can I, like, they're so clean and so timely and so punctual and so kind because they're thinking about what they can do to make the rest of the group better, not just themselves.
So what part of Asia are you talking about?
I mean, Marlo and I are going to be going to Japan, so we're looking at different Japan and society and how they view things out there. I had a roommate that was from Japan in university as well, and it was very like clashed when she came with me and lived with me, because it was so like just such a perspective of opinion on so many Americans are like, well, this is what I want and this is what I'm going to do, and that's awesome in one respect, but also the like, is it benefiting the greater good of us all? Is it helping? Is there a need and a purpose, and does it make the world a better place? Is that like combining both cultures, both like, I think just swinging too hard on the pendulum on this way or the other way is just what the 1% wants us to do, to take us over and to be able to run the ship on everything. But we really need to come together and realize we're not all that different.
Yeah, you're not wrong. We aren't all that different. And I love that you said that. And I had to just give you a bit of a hard time and ask you what part of Asia, because I was like, let me tell you why. Not that I was trying to put you totally on the spot, but I was like, girl, do you know how many people are going to come for you and I on this podcast if they're like, Asia? What part of Asia is she talking about? It's not clean.
That's fair. And
they don't care about each other.
There are a lot of internet warriors out there that have been popping up, and it's so interesting, like having trained in the stunt community and the martial arts community, like those people I highly respect and regard. And, you know, we all like fans and people that want to comment, but like people that have nothing better to do but sit around and like hurt others. I mean, there's a saying I say all the time that hurt people, and it just makes me sad. Like, I hope that, you know, if you sit around having to bash up, like, I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. I don't have, like, you're either someone who is a consumer or a creator. And I definitely have my moments, just like you were saying, your man explains, like, when we're disconnecting and when we're trying to, like, unwind or try to regulate ourselves. Some of the things that we do is watch content that makes us happy, of course. But the people that are just trash talking others on the internet, I'm like, I'm sorry that your life sucks so much that that's what you're compelled to do. Like, if you are genuinely like, I want to change my life and I don't know what to do, then reach out to me. Like, let's chat about it. Let's figure it out, because I'm going to motivate you and root you on for doing what it is that you love to do every day of the week. But it's, yeah, I just find like haters be hating. That's fine.
Oh, girl. Let me tell you, it's so funny. So I had some people that came to me and they're creators, and they were like, Lisa, how do you deal with all of like the haters? I'm like, I don't really have haters yet. I mean, I do, but most haters are in the shadows. Like, you know what I mean? Those ones. But the ones that come on and that are vocal, I'm like, haters are going to hate. And I hate to say it, but you win, because if you are putting them in a position to win over those emotions to the point where they feel they have to come on and say something rude, then you're not going to respond, and then they're going to follow you, and then they're always going to respond, and then they're always going to be, so like, they're like your biggest fans. Haters, you know, you made it because they your biggest fans. Ain't nobody going to talk more shit about you than them. And then everyone's going to be like, I got to go look at this person. All of a sudden your views go up and you're like, oh, and then most people will be like, well, wait a minute. My friend said that they don't like this person because of blah, 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 but I really like some of the content they put out. I think they're really cool. And then they get to see for themselves because one person just got their, you know, bee in their bonnet. And then I made this joke. This guy was like, I have a stalker. I'm like, oh, you know, you made it when you got a stalker. And he's like, she's psychotic. And I'm like, win's a win. Win's a win.
A win is a win. Yeah, it's true. I mean, what is it? There's a saying that I've heard before, something like, bad press is still, like, it's still press. You're still talking about me. You're still running, you know, or if someone's trying to talk you down, it's because you're already so much higher than they are. And it's like, well, you know, I hope that they can find whatever it is that makes them, like, someone must have grabbed that internet warrior, internet troll person and like crushed their dreams and just smushed them to the point that they felt that they couldn't do it, so much so that they have to go on the internet and break someone else who's trying to chase their dreams down. And so it's like, I feel bad. I feel bad for them. I hope that they can find whatever it is that they're looking for and resonate with an audience that does work with them. And, you know, the naysayers and the negative Nancys, it's just about, like, where is our energy going? Where's our frequency going? And hopefully they find their tribe where they feel like they are accepted and included for whatever it is that might actually make them happy.
True. And I love that you said that. It's true, because we don't have time for that shit. And people do need to find where they're, you know, the old saying, like, you know, fit in where you get in. Right. So, and, you know, I always make the joke about, you know, how people, you know, there's so many different people of so many different walks of life, but you're never going to make everybody happy. It doesn't matter how many people like you or how many people agree with you. You're never going to make everybody happy. And what you said on Saturday, you know, Jesse, John, and Jessica all thought it was great. And, you know, Marvin and Maisie thought that you're fucking crazy. And then on Thursday, it's the reverse, right? So you're never going to make everybody happy. And that's just something that I've just come to learn to accept. And it was funny because as I'm going on this journey of podcasting and posting on TikTok, and then I was getting responses, because I see you're on TikTok a lot and you get a lot going on. And I love it. I love supporting you on TikTok. So when I see it and I get like a comment on my podcast side, and it's like, I got to a point with one lady and I could see the passion in her, but it was one of those things where I'm glad it ended better than what I thought it was going to end. But I had to come right out and ask her, what is it you'd like me to say? Because it doesn't seem like whatever I say is good enough for you. And then I had talked to her about in Alberta, how there's kids, because it was about trans. And I was talking about, I had mentioned to her that there's kids in the schools where the schools were actually putting litter box out for the kids that thought they were cats. And I was like, what? And I remember thinking about that. And I remember having friends of mine come back and tell me, and I swore I saw something online about it. So I went to go send it. And it was basically saying that, no, this is not right. It's false, whatever. And then I was sitting down and I was having the conversation with friends of mine who have kids in school, like in different schools than my kids. My kids are in like a chartered privatized school. And so this is public school. And the parents came back and said, yes. I'm like, do you have documentation on it? They're like, no, but we have seen it. And I'm like, really? And I'm like, this isn't just like a political divide that you're trying to create. And they're like, no. They're like, we've seen it. And it's insane. There was about, probably out of like all of those parents, only one I would trust. The rest of them might be like, oh, they've got some agenda because, you know, they'll say that it's the liberals or whatever, right? And I'll be like, oh God, here we go. And I'm like, and then I always have to make the joke because I'm in Alberta. So when people get all like uppity with me, and I remember I had, because you and I, we do a lot of networking, and there's one outfit that is all about networking with strong entrepreneurs with good business sense that are conservative. Those were the That was the prerequisites. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I can't be part of your little alliance here. And they were like, oh, why? You're so great, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm a gun-toting liberal. And they were just like, you're liberal? And I'm like, yeah. And they're just like, oh, yeah, okay. But that's like, it's like being liberal or NDP is almost like a dirty word in Alberta. So I don't think it's as much anymore. I think there's a lot less of that now, but.
Yeah, it's, I mean, when people ask me how I like Alberta, I love Alberta.
Me too.
I like Alberta for two reasons. Like when I was in Ontario, like 8 years ago when I was a university student, I was a liberal. And Marlo and I have had this discussion about like, I don't know what's happened. Just like, I believe everyone should have their rights and freedoms. I believe everyone should be able to be creative. I believe everyone should be able to keep their money in their pocket. I believe everyone should be able to go to school if that's what they'd like to be educated on. I believe everyone should have the right to bear arms. I believe everyone should be able to protect themselves should they wish to, and they have responsible trainings and courses on how to do this again. And of course, you've passed the mental health safety check and things like that. Like so it's kind of like a blend of it, because that's again the thing of like, why are we dividing each other about like, oh, well, because you're not under this banner, you can't be my friend. And it's like, well, again, what happened to the risk, like agree to disagree, or just respectfully acknowledge that you don't have the same view, and that's actually okay. And then wanting to learn, like, I love wanting to talk to people that have a completely different opinion of me. I don't want to argue. Again, I don't have the time or the energy to want to argue, but I do want to know with my psychology undergraduate, like, why do you feel this way? What motivates you? How do you get yourself going on that side? And like, what is your worldview? Who taught you that? And like, even if we don't agree, that's okay. That's all right. That's, now you might have changed my opinion even about how I felt a certain way about something. And isn't that nice? But it's not like my way or the highway. That's the way, like sexuality, jobs, income, politics, like it's fluid. It should be anyway. Like the way that I felt as a university student is different now than a business owner, but there's still fundamental rights as a human being on all sides that I think we should keep encapsulating. And it's a good thing to see other people from different perspectives all the time. I felt like Ontario in general, like maybe it was just the groups that I was, or maybe it was just me in the state where I was in my life. I was like, I don't feel like I felt like we went too far a certain way where we've lost like that firm hold on the morals. Whereas like Alberta is not like that. Alberta is like strong and true, and like they have their fundamental like core of who they are as a human. But what I like too, in terms of their beliefs of things, that's why they call it the Texas of Canada. But they also, at least a lot of the people that I'm running into, have that innovative, forward thinking, like, okay, oil and gas sector for sure, that's the hub, but like what green energy are we doing? What technology are we adding? How are we benefiting the generation ahead of me, not just, taking all the resources and depleting them so that they're starved for the ones coming forward.
I think that's great. And I love that you didn't take the bait, because I always try and pop in the political question when someone tries to show me a higher moral ground to see if I can shake them, and you didn't. So I appreciate it. I love that about you. I was like, she's going to pass the test, but let's just mess with her a little bit. So you're right. And I like the way you were able to circle back, and that must be your undergrad for psychology, because you were able to circle back and go, we all just need to be able to just come to the table and have that conversation and not create a divide, which I agree with. And right now in politics, there's a huge divide going on, and it is awful to watch. And I'm sitting here as a Canadian, and I'm a proud Canadian, but I'm watching what's going on to our neighbors to the south. And that to me is just absolutely pandemonium. I'm my heart is bleeding for a lot of the Americans, especially all the ones that voted Democratic and not for the crazy pants that's in their White House. But regardless, I wanted to see, I don't know, I'm not saying I necessarily agreed with all of Kamala's, agenda items or whatnot. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with them, but I want to believe in my heart of hearts that it would not have been this chaos. And so it scares me to watch it because we're just across the way. And, even though Canada has always kind of done its own thing, and we've got a government in place currently that is, for the years that our prime minister has been there, I think he's conducted himself very well in the last few months of this craziness that's gone on, despite the fact that I've been actually quite upset with Justin Trudeau for the last 5-6 years. I've been quite upset. Once he came out, when he first came in, I was super excited because I was like, oh, he's young, he's progressive, this is going to be great. He's going to be able to bridge the gap with the generations, and this is awesome, and get out some new blood, because every time you turn around and look at your friggin' government, they were 100 years old. Not to try and be rude, but it's true. So, and so I thought it was a great thing. But then, a couple years in, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Too far. You are taking your drama job and you are now creating a stage, and that's not what we want. We just bring it back. But then we never know what goes on behind the curtain as the citizens, right? We're only told one aspect. And like you said, the people that have the 1% of the money, that have the media's attention, is going to be what you hear. So if the conservatives have certain media channels, they're going to spin whatever they can. It comes down to optics, right? It's like the conservative or the liberals go out and they paint a rainbow walkway and they say that it's a beautiful walkway and they're here to support gay rights and that LGBTQ have a voice and it's amazing. But then they're going to hone in on the fact that now every sidewalk is going to be painted. That's the conservatives will be like, every sidewalk's going to be painted this. Look what our tax dollars are going to, just to support one community. We're all people. Do you know what I mean? So it's honing in on one thing and exacerbating the issue. So you're right. It comes down to creating divide. We don't have time for it. We need to just focus on what's right. But neither side right now for our political figures is really one or the other. We've got one that's kind of more in the level-headed, as kind of well, we just want to see the greater good for everybody. I don't really care what you do behind closed doors. Just can you please pay your taxes and can you please just continue to carry on with life? But our economy has kind of gone into the shitter, like you said, right? We can't buy houses now. It's not the same. I mean, if I didn't get into the market when I did, Victoria, I don't know if I'd have a house, So, and I bought a house 6-7 years ago is when I bought a house. I bought a condo in 2006 with my ex-husband, and I sold it in 2013. And then him and I were divorced by then. And then I went and lived with the father of my the father of my children. I went and lived with him for a while, and then left him, and it took me 4 months, and I bought a house. And I bought a house because my mom helped me buy that house. Now, I've since reimbursed her all of the money, but regardless, I wouldn't have been able to do it. And now I don't even know if anybody can, I'm terrified for my kids. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have to work extra hard so that I can buy houses. So my kids have houses, so that they're not buy them the house, but buy houses and have houses that they can then assume the mortgages to. Do you know what I mean? Terrifying for parents. I mean, even for yourself. I mean, you do very well, Victoria. I know you do. You're smart as I'm telling you, you are one of the most inspiring young women I've met, and you really are. And I'm so proud of the things you've done, leaps and bounds. And same with this, this Ascent Stories. This is going to take off and it's going to be amazing because you are. And you may not have the problems, but that's what you're going to face when you eventually decide to have kids. You're going to be like, holy shit. I need to make sure we've got extra property somewhere so that we don't give as in it's basically assume a mortgage. So even if we've paid off those houses as adults and as parents, are you kidding me? I'm going to have it if I buy houses now if my kids are young, because they're not leaving me anytime soon, then I'm going to rent them out. And then when they go to get them, I'm going to take out a loan to have the whole house renovated. and that's their mortgage. Because, people like your kids you can't just, I don't believe in handing things to kids. I don't believe in that. I was never handed anything. It doesn't, and when I was handed stuff, it didn't work well for me. I don't think people should be handed things. So that's just my opinion, but c'est la vie. But I'm like I said, I'm super proud of you, Victoria. And I think there's going to be amazing things that come from this. And I learned something new about you today. I learned some of your educational background. So that's fun. I love that.
Well, thank you for having me. And it's always a good discussion, and just about let's just come together and spread peace and love and stop with this silly, entitlement bullshit that's just been pushed on the narrative that, it's just, that's why the last couple of years I've been super intentional about where focus goes, energy flows, and anything that's not making me feel good. If I don't feel good seeing this really pretty bikini model on my Instagram, I'm not following her anymore. It's no harsh on her vibe. It's just it's society's taught me that if I don't look like her, then I'm not a beautiful person, and that's false. And seeing more, just finding those people in those tribes and just including the conversation as much as you can. It starts with you.
Yeah, I agree. And as we know, as things move and progress, you're going to be weeding your friend gardens. That happens. They always say in major life shifts, marriage, divorce, death, and children is when friend gardens will start to get weeded, which means that friends will fall off. You'll stop talking. You'll reach out of touch. There'll be a disagreement, whatever. And those people are no longer in your world anymore. And people need to remember that there's a reason for that. And, I said something, I've gone through that in the last little while where all of a sudden, people have kind of dropped off in my world that were a very big part of it. And, my other half had said to me, he's like, well, what are you going to do to kind of fix it? Because Lisa's a fixer. And I was like, nothing. And he said, why? And I said, because I'm like, I've heard this saying and it sticks with me, even though I am very big on the universe. And you know that because I talked to you about the universe. I'm not a big God person, but I always say, God hears conversations you don't. So I'm like, there's a reason. So I could say it in the, the universe sees things you don't. And that's why they're dropped off. Their role with you, their time with you is concluded. And you just move on and you move forward, and you're right. I have a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine. He that's how he is. He's like, if it's negative, I don't want to fucking hear it. Even if it's gossip and not about him, he's like, nope.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's fair. That's fair. And I think it's a good way to be, because you know what? It just breeds negativity. Thank you for being your positive self. Thank you for being on my show. I adore you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, and we need to go for lunch, and I'm very excited. I didn't know you were with Marlo, so we have to catch up and have a conversation, because you're so cute and you're so giddy, and you get little red in your cheeks. You're like, I love it. Sounds like there's great things going on between you and him. So he's amazing too, and we'll have to showcase him at some point for those that are thinking about doing special. What would you say? Special events, engagements.
Yeah. So his slogan is "Wear your special moments." And
I love that.
I think it's really beautiful, but he also, he does restyles and things like that too. So for example, my grandmother passed away and, I got her medical alert bracelet, which has her, and then he engraved it down and put my allergies on it. So now
I love that.
I get to wear her with me every day, and it saves my life. So yeah.
Did he do something for mom too?
So mom, he's currently working on a heritage ring from grandma that she passed to her. So she's restyling it in her own way, because mom and grandma had very different art styles. Grandma and I were more similar.
I love it. Yes, your mom does. She's I don't know, I've seen your mom's jewelry. It's not as eccentric, but maybe not as traditional as your grandmother's.
Yeah, mom likes at least with the necklaces and stuff, she likes big and
chunky,
bold and sparkly and chunky.
Chunky.
Yeah, whereas grandma and I are more minimal and subtle and
delicate.
It's all it's all good. It's just different
preference
sides of the personality. Yeah.
Yep. Well, you're amazing. Well, Like I said, you are amazing. And for those of you that want to check out Victoria, please look up Ascent Stories, ASCENT Stories. And she does film. And what else do you do? Sorry, film?
Film, books,
Books.
publishing, just storytelling.
She's all about telling those stories. So if you've got a story, maybe that would be a great film or mini film or short film or whatnot, maybe reach out to her. How can they get hold of you, Victoria?
Yeah, feel free to give me a text or call 825-484-4414, or you can check out our website or our Facebook page.
Perfect. So maybe most of you will probably find her on Facebook faster than not. So Ascent Stories. So make sure you guys check it out. Thanks again, everybody, for joining me for another episode of Devil's Advocate Trades Edition. We'll catch up with you next time. Don't do anything crazy.